what's up? It's Jim, and I just got back from the new film Oz the Great and Powerful. Now, this is a spiritual and stylistic prequel to the original 1939 Wizard of Oz. Oz, played by James Franco, who is a carnival magician and kind of a con man who leaves on an air balloon very quickly at the beginning of the film, which is in black and white at the Academy ratio, and then is whisked off to Oz, which magically turns into widescreen, and in color. Both are in 3D. And since his name is Oz, he is fulfilling a prophecy of the great Oz who will come and restore order to the land of Oz, and he gets involved with these three witches played by Mila Kunis, Michelle Williams, and Rachel Weisz, and he has to destroy the evil witch and restore order to Oz, and then he will be the king of Emerald City and have tons and tons of riches and respect from the people of Oz. First and foremost, this is a spectacle movie. It tries to act like it has something to do with character, but all its attempts at that were very haphazard and didn't really work for the most part. But the style of it pretty much works. I don't think it's an amazing spectacle of a film. Sam Raimi, this is his first big budget huge movie since Spider-Man 3, and it's a lot better than Spider-Man 3. I was kind of surprised at how he doesn't really up the ante he was going to with Spider-Man 3. Terrible movie, but he had these amazing shots that kind of evolved over the Spider-Man films where like he would have the camera, I'm assuming it was done all digitally, where the camera would do these incredible pans. And I thought he would continue on with that, where it would like even go through Spider-Man's eye, then you'd see Doc Ock climbing up and the camera would follow him. Nothing in Oz the Great and Powerful even matched that or showed that he was progressing through that and had an even more impressive shot than what he had in Spider-Man 3. And he doesn't bring that to Oz the Great and Powerful. It almost feels like he's just grateful to be doing a big budget movie again, and that he's kind of a little more restrained. He doesn't have the extra budget excess, so he doesn't feel comfortable pushing it to that limit. Like he can't do it without the budget, even though this film costs like $200 million. I think Spider-Man 3 costs a lot more. The CGI and the design looks great, but you've seen Sam Raimi do so much better with spectacle in the Spider-Man films, and like this just doesn't feel as amazing. And also some of it was a little awkward early on when him and Mila Kunis were walking around. It looked very much like they were in front of a blue screen. Now I know they're in front of a blue screen, I understand that, but you could tell too much. I found that really distracting, like they hadn't finished the special effects. But there's enough spectacle there to really like get you through. There's enough interesting design, and a lot of the special effects were really nice. I didn't really like the Wicked Witch of the West. Looked really lame to me because of the legal rights between Warner Brothers and Disney. They couldn't have it look exactly like the Wicked Witch of the West, but it just looked like they should have done a little more detail. When people put a lot of makeup on an actor whose face we already recognize, it doesn't look like a person. It just looks like some makeup concoction of a character that just looks very fake. It is a spectacle film, and it definitely acts like it's a spectacle film, but it also kind of wants you to believe in these characters. This film has absolutely no good character development. All the characters feel weak and underdeveloped, and you don't really get the motivation behind how they get to their endpoints and how they get to these conclusions. Feels like they didn't really spend enough time in the script. I mean, the script's very badly written. None of their actions feel organic. They feel very plotted out and forced. James Franco's character, Oz, the problem with him is like you don't have a lot of time in Kansas, which is all in black and white. There's no scenes where he's wondering about going somewhere or being a better person. They kind of get into that, but not really. There's no scene like in the original Wizard of Oz where you have Dorothy singing Somewhere Over the Rainbow, or in the original Star Wars where you have Luke Skywalker looking out at those planets and like wondering what his life could be like. Helps you get really attached to those characters and understand those characters more. Oz, I feel like they really rush into him so they can get to the land of Oz and like have all the exciting things happen. It's like the film knows it has a weak script, but it still acts like it's something more, and that's really frustrating, I thought, as a viewer, because it's like, why don't you just act like the film you are, just this big giant empty spectacle, and stop trying to preach to me about how you like have some deeper meaning or something, when it just like isn't even really there and it's not really even working. And there are too many moments in this film where, if you've ever saw that Simpsons episode where they did like the 8th time they'd done a prequel episode, and Mel goes, and that was the origin of that, and there are too many moments like that. This film is really handicapped by its script, and probably because not only is it a prequel, but it's like a revisionist fairy tale thing, and neither of those are known for good storytelling. It feels strangled by all the things it has to accomplish in its little world. You don't really get good films that way. A lot of the acting was fairly bad, and it didn't help that they had a very weak script and they weren't really complete characters, but none of the actors really saved it. James Franco felt really out of his element, and he's done tentpole movies before, he's done big budget movies before with big special effects. I didn't think he was amazing in Rise of the Planet of the Apes, but I didn't think he was bad either, and in this he really feels like he's never done one of these big movies before. I don't know how much more he could have really done to the character, and same with Mila Kunis and Rachel Weisz. They just feel like they can't really grasp what they're doing. They're not really playing characters. It feels like they got the blocking right, but then when they get to the beat where they're supposed to actually perform and act, they kind of rush into it. Raimi was much better with the special effects in this film than he was the actors, except for Michelle Williams. I was kind of surprised at how complete her performance made her character feel. Even though the script was weak and the story wasn't really working, she still felt like a complete character. I understood her character more. I could follow her character as an audience member, since everyone else was just so kind of all over the place and just rushing into their characters. She felt like she had some patience to her, and that's something I wish this film had some patience with this runtime. It always feels like when you see these big Hollywood movies that it's like you're watching a 2-hour cut of a 3.5-hour movie. This isn't the Sam Raimi that made Evil Dead. This is big spectacle, big budget Sam Raimi. Even though he has some references to Evil Dead in here, and Bruce Campbell does a cameo that I think should have been a lot longer. It wasn't that much fun. It wasn't like the Spider-Man cameo, certainly. It's not as bad as the worst of big budget Raimi, which would be Spider-Man 3, but it's not as good as the height of big budget Raimi, which was Spider-Man 2. It doesn't show me the best that Raimi can do with a big budget. It kind of shows me the problems he has with a big budget, which is bad script, rushing into things, putting too many characters in there. He definitely moved past Spider-Man 3 and is better director than Spider-Man 3, but he's still falling into the same constraints and problems that movie had. It's just a big empty spectacle, and that's not really that interesting. There's so many Hollywood movies that do empty spectacle that it just feels kind of more an assembly line, all audience bland, super CG movie than it does feel like a real story. It makes me more disenfranchised with Hollywood than it makes me, whisked off to a magical world. So if you have seen Oz the Great and Powerful and you would like to talk about it, then comment below in the comments and subscribe if you would like to.